Hey guys, you ever hear those like follow your dreams talks? Like anybody? Remember, we've all heard them, right? Here's the thing that they never tell you in the follow your dreams talks, okay? Like most dreams are super weird, right? Like one minute you're like, you're just in bed, you're all sound asleep, snuggled up. The next minute, you're on a pirate ship with your ex-girlfriend, like fighting over like who ate the last bag of chips. Hypothetically. Hypothetically speaking. So this is going to kind of be like part 2 of the follow your dream talk. Okay, it's kind of like the sequel, because here's the thing. I actually did. I followed my dreams. About 6 months ago, maybe to a month ago or so, probably around like a year ago, I came out with my first book. It's called Get Weird. Yeah. And then shortly after, I started this thing called Ring Beller. And essentially, we call it like, kind of like TED meets Sesame Street. And they're video lessons that schools can use that teach kids creativity and kindness. And that they're all weird, and that's a really good thing. But here's the thing, I did it. I followed my dreams. It's like maybe like 6 to 9 months ago, and where I stand with you right here is kind of this super strange space. I'd even call it a season. Christians are like, we're really big on seasons, right? Like, I only thought there was 4 seasons, but apparently there's a lot more seasons than that. So I'm in a season right now, I'm in a moment, whatever you want to call it, but it's sort of that, like, if I'm being honest with you, like kind of that dark night of the soul, like valley of the shadow of death kind of thing. Like, it's really like this liminal space I find myself today between the now and the not yet. Like, honestly, there's some really, really cool things potentially on the horizon that I'm super excited about. But there's also like this very, very real possibility that things like totally might not work out at all. And so, honestly, like, I'm like right in the middle right there right now, except sometimes I'm not smiling like I am in that picture, because it's really tough. And honestly, like, either of those two outcomes like seem better than kind of just being in this sort of purgatory-ish, liminal kind of space right now. And I was telling a friend about this season that I'm in, and he shared with me this really great poem by a woman named Susan Rock called a New Way of Struggling. And I thought I'd share it with you because it really just encapsulated like that feeling I'm going through right now really well. So here it is. She starts out, she goes, "To struggle used to be to grab with both hands and shake and twist and turn and push and shove and not give in, but wrestle an answer from it all as Jacob did a blessing. But there is another way to struggle with an issue, a question. Simply to jump off into the abyss and find ourselves floating, falling, tumbling, being led slowly and gently, but surely to the answers God has for us. To watch those answers unfold before our eyes and still like to be a part of that unfolding. But oh, the trust necessary for this new way. Not to be always reaching out for the old handholds. So here I am. I've followed my dreams, and I've stepped off the ledge, and I'm tumbling into the abyss, and those old handholds are sort of like just evaporating in front of me right now. And it's just an interesting season. Like, I can tell you what it's like to watch, your bank account, let's just say, fluctuate more than normally. I can tell you what it's like to come out with a book and have like people on social media and kind of friends in the peripheral will be like, oh, like you're killing it, man, you're crushing it. I don't know why success has so many violent metaphors, by the way, but to hear all that and to know like that's not really what reality looks like right now. I can tell you what it's like. I can tell you what it's like to go through your day and to watch sort of your desires kind of shift from like total success and I'm gonna like be like, oh, this is great. I'm gonna crush this day, all the way down to the end of the day, and you're just like wanting sheer self-preservation. Like, what's Maslow's hierarchy of needs again? I think it's like Instagram likes are at the top, followed by money. There's safety, and I think at the bottom it's like Guinness and chocolate chip cookies. I know that bottom tier like very, very well lately. And guys, look, I know we had this like amazing worship experience, and it's the first day. I promise I'm like not trying to be a bummer, and it's gonna get better. Like, okay, like there's gonna be hope and all that kind of stuff. But I was nervous about even like telling you guys about where I am in the artistic process right now. But then I realized like this is a room full of creators and makers, and I'm guessing like some of you, if not most of you, are either in a similar season right now or have been in a similar season, or hopefully this is hopeful news, like you're going to be in a season like that if you do follow your passion, follow your heart, follow the dreams that God has put inside of you. And so here's the deal. Like, yes, old handholds have evaporated and disintegrated, but I can tell you in this season some new handholds have begun to materialize and manifest. And so I want to take a couple of brief minutes and just kind of share with you some stories behind how those new handholds got there. So number one, here's the first handhold. It was a couple months ago. It was right around the time the book came out. It was probably, I think it was in October. I was speaking at a retreat in Southern California. And it was just not a good week. I was going through all of this, like, why am I doing this? I can't believe it. Like, this is crazy. Like, am I supposed to be doing this? And I was doing an interview, and like the person was asking me questions, and like part of my brain, like the left half of my brain, or like one half of my brain was going like, answering all these like expert questions because I thought that's like what they wanted me to do, and acting like an expert and stuff. And the other half of my brain's just kind of like singing to me like, "You're a fraud. You're a fraud. You're a fraud. You're a fraud." I don't know why he sounds like an old New York Broadway actor, but that's anyway. But one morning during that retreat, it was a beautiful retreat center in Southern California. I woke up and I was walking around. They had all of these really cool like glass enclosures outside. They were just like rectangle, like big like cubes where it was like glass on each side, and they had like a doorway you can kind of walk in, and they had like coffee in there and everything. And I was standing outside one of the glass enclosures by a picnic table or something, and I noticed that a hawk got in to one of these glass enclosures. And what I saw next was one of like the weirdest, most jarring like images I've ever seen in my life. I watched this hawk try and get out of this glass enclosure, and it like it starts flapping its wings and it picks up speed, and then just like, bam, hits one of the glass enclosures, and it's kind of like knocked around and stupefied, and it regains its composure and starts flapping its wings again and starts picking up speed, and then wham, right into another glass enclosure or glass pane or whatever. And it did this about 3 or 4 times until some woman decided to go inside and pick the hawk up. And this thing had like razor sharp talons and a razor sharp beak, and like pick this thing up and carry it outside to freedom. And that was the first time, I think, in my entire life that I actually believed that strength and surrender are not mutually exclusive. Like, because my entire life, I've really, really struggled to trust God, because I feel like I have to do it on my own, or else, I'm weak, or I'm missing something that other people have. I'm in Enneagram 4, for anybody who hasn't guessed. I wrote a book called Get Weird. But seriously, it's been a big deal for me. And I'm looking at the symbol of power, this hawk, like it's a predator, for goodness sake. You know what I mean? It's got these razor sharp claws and the beak and everything. And at some point, this thing needed someone who could see his entrapment and see the bigger picture and carry it out to wider pastures. Strength and surrender are not mutually exclusive. You could be strong, and you can also go, I need help from something bigger and stronger and more powerful than me. So that's the first handhold. Second handhold, right around that time, I was going to another speaking gig, and it was kind of crazy. Oh, you weren't supposed to see that yet. Just forget about it. Pretend like it wasn't there. So I'm going to this other speaking gig, and I'm the only one speaking, so there's nowhere to hide. And I'm having this conversation. I'm driving to it. And I'm like, oh, I think I was going to announce that I was starting Ringbeller then, and I hadn't actually created really anything for it yet, just a trailer video and something. I'm just going, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. Why am I doing this? People are going to think I'm a fraud, and I can't believe this. And I pull up to the speaking gig I'm supposed to speak, and I kind of have to back up a bit because earlier that summer, somebody had introduced me to the poet Rainer Maria Rilke. And I know I'm kind of late to the party on this, but over the summer, I just devoured some of his poems and his writings, and I felt it had such a huge, huge impact on me. Every time I would read this guy, I felt like I was having a beer with a best friend. And so I'm having this whole conversation with myself on the way to the speaking gig. I show up, I walk inside the doors of this building. I'm telling you, this is the first thing I see in larger than life letters. I actually took a picture of it. This was on the wall. And if you guys can't see the fine print, that's a quote by Rainer Rilke. And it's funny because I was meeting people there, and I kind of had to dodge them to duck into a restroom and just weep. And it was at that moment that I decided to take Rilke at his word and believe in the handhold that presence is actually greater than peace. Because I didn't have peace that whole talk that I gave the talk, but I showed up anyway. Presence is greater than peace. What's interesting is that's kind of a weird thing to say. I believe it, but it's kind of weird because we all want peace, right? We're all on team peace. Peace is a good thing. We all strive for peace. Christ came to bring peace to the world. But here's the thing. We might not get peace today. We might not get it tomorrow. We might not get it over the weekend when a certain report gets talked about, and maybe, anybody read the news today? No? Okay. We might not get peace in 2020. We might not get peace when we want it. So what's left? What's the work? Well, the work is to show up. The work is to keep believing, keep pretending, as St. Kermit the Frog once said. Right? Yes, Christ brought peace. But first, he embodied humanity. He became incarnate. He showed up. He arrived. He sat with us. He ate with us. He dined with us. He wept with us. I think that's what Rilke is getting at when he says, let everything happen to you, beauty and terror. Just keep going. No feeling is final. The feeling of beauty isn't final. The beauty of terror isn't final. Just keep going. And in some weird sense, there's a deeper sense of peace that comes with being present in the absence of sort of a shallow kind of linear peace. One more handheld before I go. This actually kind of came to a head, and it revealed itself to me in a really big way during the same experience, although I've kind of been wrestling it with it my whole entire life. When I arrived at that venue and I saw these words, like I felt so seen. You know what I mean? Like I felt so loved. Like I was such a big fan of Rilke, and those words had kind of kept me going, and I felt so seen and so loved. And it was like a preemptive kind of love too, right? Because I hadn't accomplished anything yet. I was literally in the car driving, going like, I haven't done anything that I'm proud of yet. Like, what in the world? Why am I doing this? And it kind of dawned on me, like, God might actually like me. Like, not love me. Like, I get the love thing, okay? Where somebody be like, he actually might like me, like, even in my unsureness, even in my insecurity. God might actually like me. It reminded me of these words from one of my heroes, a guy named Fred Rogers, Mr. Rogers, Fred Rogers. He said this in a commencement speech to some kids who are graduating from college. He says, when I say it's you I like, remember that song, it's you I like? I'm not going to sing it for you, but when I say that it's you I like, I'm talking about that part of you that knows that life is far more than anything you can either see or hear or touch. That deep part of you that allows you to stand for things without which humankind cannot survive. Maybe even things like creativity and kindness and the fact that we're all a little weird, and that's okay. That's a good thing, actually, I'm hoping. And he said this in this commencement speech, too. And this is kind of the crux of that handhold. He says, you don't need to do anything sensational for people to love you. You don't need to do anything sensational in order to be loved. I don't know about you guys, but it's really hard for me as a creative person to believe sometimes. But the really interesting thing is, like the really funny thing is that, like, I love the things I'm making right now. Like, I really love them. Like, before I know what's going to happen to them, before I know what they're going to accomplish or not accomplish. I guess that's why we make stuff. Like, I guess that's why we create stuff. To remind us what God is like. Thank you.